Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my channel Clever Engineer, and this is my first video on YouTube that is on top front-end frameworks. So guys, we are looking at the top front-end frameworks in year 2020 that you must definitely learn. So by starting from the current front-end developer interest, let's see what are the top trends for web frameworks and library in 2020. So here you could see the graph that represents the developer interest in terms of percentage that shows which front-end framework they are more interested in. So you could see that React has secured the top position although it come much later in the market. Second is the Vue, which is youngest among the top three but still secured that second position, and third is the Angular, which is the oldest among the three of it. So starting with React. First of all, it is a library and not a framework that is useful for building user interfaces, and it is been ranked as the most used and most favorite JavaScript library among the developers. And it is an open source and component based with JSX syntax so that you could also contribute your part if you wish. And JSX syntax might be newer for someone, so it is basically neither HTML nor a string. It is an extension to JavaScript, and I'm not gonna go deeper in all this stuff in this video, but I will tell some points so that you could have a cleaner image in your mind. It is backed by a Facebook, a large corporate. That means it will be supported by many experts, and its upcoming versions will be earlier and much more better. It was created by a Jordan Walk, a software engineer at Facebook. So this was a quick intro of our top player, and this is just a fancy object that I have created as I love object oriented, so I have just created it with its properties. And here you could see that React is 7 years old. So coming to the pros in React, components are reusable, so that component which does some stuff and you want that functionality to use again in some other part of the application, you could use it without writing that same code again and just use that component. And there is virtual DOM kind of thing in React, which is a representation of a DOM object but in a very lightweight copy. So it contains same property as a real DOM, while manipulating the DOM is much more slower, but with virtual DOM it is much more faster. And third point is one direction data flow. So it provides the advantage that data does not flow in opposite direction, and it removes many problems which arises by using a two-way data binding, and it also removes some side effects. And also vast community of developer are using React, which means that React would be much more popular. And fifth point is React development tools, which are much more advanced and super useful. It basically used to debug the application, and it is very easy to use. Now coming to the cons of the React. So first one is the poor documentation. As there are multiple and constant update in the framework, it is very difficult to make the proper documentation. So it does impact the learning curve for the beginners. And second is the complexity of JSX. As React does not use the HTML, it uses the JSX, which is much harder for the beginners to understand the syntax and be used with it. And third is React is not a framework but a library, so you need much more libraries to develop a complex application. And fourth is no TypeScript support. So TypeScript is a superset of a JavaScript. It contains much more things that JavaScript does not support. Now let's see which companies are using React. So all the top companies like Facebook, Instagram, Netflix, PayPal, Uber, Udemy, Pinterest are all using the React. Now coming to our youngest player, that is Vue, which is at the second position in our graph. So it is a progressive JavaScript framework and it has been trending ever since it was introduced. It has one of the reason is that it has all the good aspects of both Angular and React. And the creator of the Vue was created by Ivan Yu. And still he himself and his small developer team are improving it. Earlier he was working for Google and was using AngularJS in a number of his project, and he later think that what he could extract the part that he really like about the Angular and build something much more lightweight. So that's when Vue born. Now coming to the Vue object, we could see that Vue is 6 years old. Now coming to the pros of using the Vue. So first of all, it is very easy to learn due to its simplicity. And second is it has a great TypeScript support in the framework. So TypeScript is much easier to write and understand than JavaScript, and it comes with a lot of features. Third is detailed and comprehensive documentation, which means that one could easily read and get started with, as it contains so many demos and tutorials. Also, the developing community is increasing every year, which means that a large number of people will be working on Vue and there will be more advancement coming in the Vue. And fifth thing is that it provides very simple integration with other libraries, so it is much more easier to include or work with other libraries in the Vue. Now coming to the cons of using the Vue. First of all, there is a lack of stability in the components, and second is there is still a relatively small community. So because of it is a new language, it is not supported by a large community of active programmers. So development team of Vue is smaller than Angular or React, and it will take some time to get corporate backing. And third is market share compared to the React and Angular is much less for the Vue. And fourth point is language barrier. So as most of the plugins are written in Chinese language, it is difficult for some developers to understand and modify it. Now let's see which companies are using the Vue. So you could see almost all the top companies are using it, such as Nintendo, GitLab, Xiaomi, Alibaba, Grammarly, Adobe, Behance are all using Vue. Now coming to the oldest player in our list, that is Angular. So Angular is a full-blown framework, which means that many of the things will come built in with it, such as for routing. In the React you need external library to route the page, but in Angular routing support is built in it. And second is it is a TypeScript based open source framework, so that you must learn TypeScript for using the Angular. And Angular is created by the Misko Haveri, and it is backed by a large corporate company, that is Google. Now by looking at the Angular object, you could see that Angular's age is 10. It is 10-year-old. So now coming to the pros of using Angular. So first is lazy loading feature. So to understand it, I will give you one example, as Angular contains multiple modules in its application, and each module contains multiple components. So visualize module as kind of a bucket which contain component inside of it. So let's consider one bucket of user profile and other bucket of cart. So when user opens the application, these both buckets are not loaded. These are loaded only when user wants to view or user click on one of the button like view my profile, so that so then only that module will get loaded. And second is the TypeScript support, which is contain more features than a JavaScript. And third is detailed and comprehensive documentation. So Angular's documentation is far more better than Vue and React, and it contains basically all the tutorials and examples that you could learn. Fourth is it's about two-way data mining to model and controller. So in both the ways, data can be passed from HTML to the controller or from the controller to the HTML part. And fifth is component are reusable. Now coming to the cons of using Angular. So first is you must learn TypeScript. Without knowing the TypeScript, you could not start with Angular. Second is difficult to manage the components. As your application grow larger, there will be multiple components in your application. So without proper folder structure, you could not manage the components easily. And the third is Angular is not backward compatible with its earlier versions. So if your code is written in Angular JS, it needs to be fully migrated into Angular, which is some cumbersome task for some developers. And fourth is decreasing popularity. After upcoming of the Vue and the React, developers are moving towards those framework and losing their interest in Angular. Now let's look at the companies which are using the Angulars. So Google, Telegram, YouTube, Nike, AWS, Microsoft, Apple are all using Angular.